Hello and welcome to Shaman Sister Sessions, episode 98.
Hi, welcome.
Hi.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi. That was cracking me up right as she was hitting record. So sorry about that. Episode 98, relating to your family on the spiritual path.
Which maybe is why we're laughing, because really we need definitely a dose of lightness when we start talking about families and relationships. Whether no matter what path you're on, I think this is our big challenge.
Yeah,
and Michelle, continue our intro.
No, that's fine. I mean, whatever. We're starting all over the place today. That's okay.
It's episode 98. If you haven't been watching us, then there's 97 other episodes that you can see, and we've done amazing intros. If you are on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe so you'll get notifications when we release these episodes twice a month. And they're often we'll do little themes of the month, and we're going to be excited to be hitting our 100th episode within so soon. So I'm Katherine Bird, and this is Michelle Hawk, and we're the Shaman Sisters, and we are here today to talk to you about the spiritual path and relationships in your family and your friends, and what the heck might be going on, and how do you handle changes in yourself as you're rapidly changing, expanding, growing in awareness, and then how do you maintain relationships with people that you knew from your childhood, and how do you communicate with your family in a way that is healthy and sane, and deal with the stuff that's coming up.
Mm-hmm. Great job, Kat.
It's a great job. And Michelle just got back from vacation and was spending a lot of time with family, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I had 8 days of family time. It was great. No, it was really great. And, of course, there was stuff that was coming up, and it's fine. Also, I just landed back a couple days ago, so I think I'm still a little bit in Hawaii brain, hence the rocky start to this episode. But and this is something that Kat and I have talked about in many episodes, right? Because it is a theme that pervades a lot. When we talk about when we've talked about intuition, right? Like, of how do we relate with our intuition to other people, and talked about boundaries and energetic protection and a lot of the practices, right? So there is a lot already kind of woven through these different pieces of episodes. But, we realized, hey, this is such an important thing. This is, regardless of what your relationship with your family is, you might have a great relationship with your family. You might have a really healthy communication and healthy boundaries and a lot of love and a lot of compassion. And if so, that's awesome. And there's always room to investigate more of that. Or you might have, maybe your family isn't in your life. And maybe there's some tools that we can offer you in this conversation to look at healing the energetic relationships with these people, even if they're not physically present in your life for whatever reason. Maybe you're somewhere in the middle of that, of your family still in your life, but things are a little rocky. Whatever it is, we're going to be looking at that today. And as Kat mentioned, not only family, but also community and longtime friends and people who we want to maintain a connection with as we're growing on this path.
And even partnerships. I know that it is usually the case in my conversations with my clients, as they're talking about, well, they're having these new awareness, new spiritual experiences, new interests. They're getting involved in new communities and new practices. They're becoming healthier, changing their lives. And it can be really challenging when the people who are very close to you, people that you love, people that you like to talk to, maybe even your partner, a long-term partnership, is not on that same path right now and not taking those same steps, and maybe doesn't understand what the heck you're talking about, or if is feeling like they can't relate to you. And so there's your experience inside all of that, and then the awareness of what their experience might be like, to be able to have both of sort of a pullback and view of what's going on, so that things can maybe be a little bit easier. But oftentimes there are challenges that come up in our relationships as we dive into our spiritual path. We become more authentic. We start speaking our truth. We start changing things about ourselves, maybe becoming more what seems some people are afraid of, right? Like, this is scary. It's people who are being authentic, speaking their truth, being spiritual, maybe going down a path that isn't mainstream. So maybe doesn't feel like there's as much security in it, doesn't feel like there's as much known. It's not a known path. It's this out of nowhere thing that could be dangerous in some way. In the eyes of the person who's not on that path. So people can get worried about you. They can be really scared for you, because we are changing really quickly. And sometimes we don't see how quickly that we are changing until maybe you think about it and you're like, just consider where you were a year ago and consider where you were 5 years ago. And maybe you've changed so much. That can be really startling for people who, especially if they're the kind of people who are really invested in things not changing and they like things to stay the same.
Right. Yeah. So there's a few pieces already that Katherine was pulling out in that, in this topic that I want to call attention to, because they are helpful tools. One of which is what I like to call the empowered observer perspective. So Kat, what you were mentioning about being in the experience, and I'm going to offer some other language to this, of having your personal experience of, perhaps having a triggering conversation with a family member or whatever it is, and being present there, but also maintaining this almost pulled back empowered observer perspective, where you're able to look at what the dynamic is that's happening and have the awareness not only of, okay, I feel triggered right now, but maybe also of, as you were talking about, Kat, of like, this person is afraid for me, or this person wants me to to make enough money, and right now I'm making choices that they don't understand because it doesn't look like a financially secure option. And so they're expressing their concern in this unhealthy way that looks and feels to me like judgment and criticism, but really it's coming from a place of love, right? And that's the empowered observer part of ourselves that's able to hold that space, even if we may simultaneously be feeling super triggered and like we don't want to engage in that conversation. So that's one tool that I want to offer you.
Well, wait, so when we're looking at that empowered observer, well, where does that come from? Well, it comes from your spiritual practice. So the tools that you're learning in presence, mindfulness, being with the breath, being with the body, meditation, tracking your thoughts and your feelings, looking at the positive aspects of yourself and others, and compassion, being able to hold a compassionate heart for others and for self, being able to pause and not become overly reactive. All of those things are going to help you in that having that observer mindset, so that when you're in the experience, it can be challenging when we're being triggered, and especially generally our family can really trigger our childhood wounds, and not being lovable, not enough, not good, whatever our story is. And so really our spiritual path is informing this, and this is the real workstation of the spiritual work that you're saying that you love and you really want to be a part of. Well, this is the gym you get to work out.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. So that's one big tool right there, the empowered observer perspective. And it's also this little bit of almost like energetic bilocation where you're not abandoning yourself in your triggered experience. If you are in this example, if you are having a triggered experience and emotions are running high, you're not avoiding and you're not dissociating or stepping away from that experience. You're just having that while also having this other awareness. So it can be a little bit easy, and I want to kind of caution you on this. It can be easy to do some spiritual bypassing and kind of, look at this from the place of only in this like, oh, it's all light and love and we're all fine, and then not actually honoring, hey, they're saying things to me right now that are crossing my boundaries. Like that's really important too, to be having both perspectives simultaneously, because it can also be easy, especially with family or with people who have been in our lives for a long time. There's almost this experience, and I see this with clients, Kat, I bet you do too, where it's like someone's starting to grow in this other area, but they're staying the same around, or they're defaulting back to old patterns or old behaviors around people that have known them for a long time. So maybe like, okay, they're starting to grow in this way, or they have a new teacher, or they have this new spiritual community that they're really excited, and they're growing into this new version. But then they come back home and their partner asks, oh, how was the event? And it's like, oh, I'm back in this shell, right? So this consciousness about, okay, how do we integrate this growth, this new, more expansive manifestation into the experience of the usual, right? Of who we used to be, and how do we get people to know us, who we want to stay in our lives? How do we get people to experience this version of us, and also honor the new boundaries and the new, because this is something that's going to come up. I guarantee you're going to have new boundaries, and you're going to have new ways that you want people to relate to you in your life. And it's important to actually stand up for yourself with that, and not just let it slide.
Right. Because as you go down this path, you realize the places where you've been giving up your power, where you've been saying yes, where you meant to say no, where you've been not being expressed or not being truthful and authentic. And the more that you're on this path, it's like, well, no, I have to honor and love myself. Now, the other kind of flip side of this is that we might come home from the event and we might shut down and not want to share, and not like we want to hide, or we might come home from the event and just like vomit all of this stuff on top of other people that they have no relationship to. And it feels very threatening. It feels like you're trying to tell them that they're wrong about their lifestyle or the way that they've been living or what they're doing. And you have all the answers, and they're dumb because they didn't know that they shouldn't be doing this or should be doing this. And you try to like convince them very strongly to change things about themselves, or that this is the right way or this is the right path. And instead of being a little soft in the awareness that everyone's on their path and everyone is evolving at their own rate and their own pace. And while you can definitely help and support people, like being super strident and kind of combative and know-it-all-y about stuff doesn't open people to what you're saying. It doesn't open people to the possibility that you're expressing. And this happens a lot when people are like, oh, well, now, we need to eat this certain way, or we need to stop buying these things or supporting this stuff. And we become like really, really tense.
Yeah. And it's, I think preachy is a good word there.
Not in a good way.
Not in a good way. No. Is preachy ever a good way? No. And yet, knowing like this is part of that, part of the growth stage too, is like you're excited. I went through a preachy phase for sure. Years and years ago of like taking Reiki, and then, talking about energetic healing. And, I was all about like, if you're not taking care of your energy body, like, that's a bad thing. And it took a minute, for as I was growing, I was a young practitioner, and and getting to realize like, hey, there's a way that things are a lot more accessible to people and a way that things are less accessible to people. So finding that balance, and yes, it's totally okay to be excited. It's okay to want to share things with people. Doing it in such a way that people can actually hear you, or at least appreciate and say, oh, that's nice. Even if it's just, oh, that's nice, instead of like, fuck you, stop telling me what to do, right? Stop micromanaging my experience.
Right. Because,
Mhm.
a lot of times you're not going to change anybody's mind about things, right? Like, especially when you're looking at your parents and they're older and they'll maybe just, that's it. That's it. This is where they're at. This is where they're going to stay. And, what is more important to you, right? Being right, or having a relationship and being kind and, appreciating what you can around the relationship that you do have, especially as people age and get older. It's like, well, you don't have a lot of time left. Do you want to spend it preaching at them and trying to get them to change? I mean, you might be right about things, right? About the way that they should be doing something that would be healthier, and maybe they don't know, and maybe they're open to hearing some information from you about what the heck they're actually putting in their bodies. And maybe that's not what that relationship needs to be about.
Mhm.
And I mean, we all do it. If you've been listening to me, I'm super strident about stuff, and I know that I have stuff that I've told my mom for years, and then like, here's some nutritional fact or something about the body or something about whatever. And I'll tell her, and I'll have told her so many times. And then there's just like one day she shows up and she's like, well, did you know that this? I'm like, Mom, I've been saying that for like 10 years. Like, what? Okay, great. I'm really happy that you're doing that now. I'm really happy that you're like taking on this new nutritional thing or way of being. People evolve when they're ready to evolve, and they change when they're ready to change. And you get to be that light and that example. But you're not gonna maybe change their mind by beating them over the head.
Mhm. I think of it like an invitation, right? And this is something that, I've had this experience, and I know people who have had this experience where it's like, when we're healthy and when we're grounded and when we're empowered, it becomes almost this like, people are drawn to that or repelled by it, right? Like, think of a magnet either way. And the people who are drawn to it are those who are ready to lean in more and saying, oh, I see that. I see how you look brighter, like you have more energy, and I want that. I want to lean in. And then the people who are repelled by that are the people who, for whatever reason, have shut themselves off from that, or don't see themselves as worthy of that, or are judging something about this expression of leaning into health and well-being, and then it's almost like they're repelled the other way. So either way, in that case, think of it as an invitation where you, by being your fully expressed, most empowered, most best version of yourself that you're constantly growing into, and investing time and energy in yourself and in your practices every day, you're going to have the side of the magnet that draws and the side of the magnet that repels. And in this case, looking at people who are close to you, how can the invitation be such that there's space for them to lean in, but there's also space for them to lean out, and either way, it's okay. And there are people who are going to fall out of our lives. There are people that we're no longer going to have a relationship or be friends with for whatever reason. But, even if, and I've had this experience of, some of my family has absolutely no context for what I do, or they don't understand what I do. Like my dad, for example, like he just wants me to be happy, and he wants me to, to be healthy and
Right.
do what I
He's like,
love. And
Michelle, you have to have health insurance. Like, he wants the like the basics. And you'll see that especially like with dads and stuff, where they're like, I don't really get what all of this stuff is about, but do you have health insurance? Are you going to the dentist? Like,
Uh-huh.
when are
Is
you
your
getting
car
married? Is your
okay?
car,
Okay. Right.
do you have
Yeah.
insurance?
Do you
Right.
have yeah, it's and so for him, it's like he probably won't ever understand what I do and what some of the things that I'm most excited and passionate about, but that's okay. So he's an example of like kind of leaning out a little bit as far as the spiritual practice stuff goes, but it's in such a way that I still we still have a relationship. We talk regularly, usually like at least once a week or, a couple times a week sometimes, and just check in and see how things are going. And there's space for that because I'm not trying to change him. He's not trying to change me other than to, as far as these systems go of like, getting me to have health insurance in a system that I don't believe in and I think is inherently corrupt. Right. And so there's that, but there's a lot of love and there's a lot of space there. And so that's been a happy medium as far as that goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is important to know that people are going to fall away. And this is a big pain point for a lot of people. And a lot of my clients are very challenged by the inner conflict of, I'm being called to be more authentic, to be really me, to let people see me, to let people know me, to talk about what I'm interested in, to talk about my life, to show my life on social media, to have offerings that I'm offering to people out in the world, trainings and all kinds of things. And there is a lot of inner conflict of, oh my gosh, well, what if the people that I'm close to decide to not talk to me anymore? Or even I had someone messaging me just a few days ago. She had put out stuff about on her email list about being a priestess and what that means to her and that path of the priestess, because this is really important to her. And she's like, I had people unsubscribe from my list. And that can feel sometimes like a dagger, like, and so there's that part that like, well, it's okay if they unsubscribe and I'll get more people and they'll be more aligned. But then there's that little part that's like, but what if it's the people I actually like? And what if it's the people who I've known for so long? And what if I'm left alone? What if I am outcast from the tribe and I starve to death on the savannah? And like, we have all of this inner need to have love and acceptance in our lives. And when we're pushed away for being authentically who we are, that can bring up a lot of inner pain and conflict.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's rejection, right? And it lands in the system as this person isn't, for whatever reason, they're leaning away or they're choosing to unsubscribe, or we're spending less time together. This person that maybe I really like them or trust them, or we have a lot of history together, and for whatever reason, as I am now stepping into this path, they're rejecting me. Right. And so that, yeah, it can be really painful. It can be it can definitely be I don't even know what the word is I want to use. It's like it's almost like a rite of passage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where
It
it's that,
is. Yeah.
yeah, as you are stepping into this new version of yourself, inherently there are things in any rite of passage, in any transition point, there are things that die, there are things that continue, and there are new things that grow from there.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes and that includes people, right? Like people fall away or people stay with us or we get new people. And with this, it's I want to make sure that we talk about some of our favorite practices with this and some of the tools and awarenesses that we can offer you. We've already touched upon a couple here in terms of the empowered observer and in terms of being really conscious with your communication of how you're inviting people to participate in this experience with you, right? But Kat, what other pieces would you like to offer people and make sure that people know about or have in mind as we're navigating some of this tricky process.
Well, I think just having this awareness of what we're talking about, that this is a natural part of the process of awakening, of becoming more real, more true, of being more expressed in the world. There's going to be people who don't relate to you, and that's okay. And you also get to be the captain of your ship, and that might mean that there's loss, and that might mean that there's grieving and mourning over those losses, and to allow that it's okay that you have those feelings of whatever it is that you are feeling, that it hurts to feel rejected and to feel like you're losing something, and you might be losing something, and it might transform and change and come back around and become something new and amazing and beautiful. And it might mean that there's something that really needs to be let go of so that you can be truly who you are in the world. And that is a process, and that can take some time and a lot of self-love and self-care and self-nurturing, and making a commitment that as you're going through that process, if you are feeling like, wow, I just lost a bunch of people, or I don't know who these people are, I can't relate to them, or I don't feel like I fit in, that instead of telling yourself this story that you don't fit in and nobody loves you and you don't have a place in the world, that you are actively choosing to go outside of your current bubble to engage with people who might have a better chance at understanding you, knowing you, and loving you. Because what I see a lot of times in the people I work with is that there is well, I don't relate to these people. I go to these events, or these, I'm a mom and all the other moms aren't into this stuff. And this is my friend group, and this is the same friend group I've been in the last 20, 30 years. And now I go to these events and I'm like, I don't understand. I'm unrelatable. They don't understand me. I feel rejected. But then there's often not an effort to push themselves to do something different. And so then that is putting yourself in that same position of, I'm rejected, I'm unloved, I'm not worthy, nobody likes me, I'm too weird, this is too weird. And that is very diminishing to your life force. It's very diminishing to your path. It's very diminishing to who you are. And it's not actually self-loving. And it might take a while and a bunch of false starts and stuff, but there are spiritual people everywhere. And they might be a little bit more hidden in the little nooks and crannies, but we exist everywhere. And so you have to make the effort to go to events and look in your local paper and look online and find the yoga studios and the meditation centers and the sound healings and the metaphysical bookstore and the places where you're gonna meet people who are like, I see you, you're amazing, let's do something together.
Mm-hmm. And it's almost the fear of losing people that we feel like we have some connection to is greater. And in this case that Kat was talking about, of like going to the group and like, oh, these people aren't really my friends anymore, but I'm still going because I'm afraid of losing any type of connection. And if we're kind of looking at the rest of our life and we don't necessarily have people, or we have, maybe a couple people who we feel like might understand us, there's this like almost stepping off the edge into the abyss with no guarantee that we're going to catch ourselves. Right. But you will. Like I can guarantee, I feel very confident in guaranteeing that, that there are people that you will find that will be more your people. And, all of this to say also, it's like, it doesn't mean that you're walking away from everybody who doesn't see you anymore. Right. It doesn't mean you have to abandon those relationships, but I find, and what I found for myself and what I see in my clients is, when you do have people that, you can relate to and that you're close to and that actually see you and you can have this relationship to, it takes some of the pressure off these other relationships, right? Because all of a sudden, oh, I don't need my parents to see me in this way anymore because I have other people who see me. So now that I feel really validated and I have this sense of belonging in this area, now I can relate to my parents as simply my parents and,
Right.
or my family in this way and just
Yeah.
let it be what it is.
And especially with your partner, because maybe you've been married to somebody for many years and you have kids together, you have a house together, you have a life together, like you have a lot of structure that you've built together. And then you start having these changes, your partner isn't having these changes. And then there's all of this fear of, oh my God, I've got to leave my partner. And maybe that is the transition and that's supposed to occur. But if you have this other community and you have friends and you have these things that are going on that are feeding you and making you feel seen in this way, then it's possible that you can really have, like, your partner doesn't have to be the same as you. Like, your partner might be really different and might be interested in other things. And you can see how your partner has a spiritual life that is the love of the children. And the spiritual life is going out and being in nature, or the spiritual life is the connection that you have taking walks together or having brunch together. Like, there's ways that you can see how that the connection and the love and all of that can be nurtured, even if your partner's like, yeah, I don't get it, and I love you anyway, or I just, I don't know if I'm into that. But we have this life. So, don't think that just because you're going through these changes means that you can't maintain some connections, that are important to you. And it might take a little bit more effort because life is like that. Everybody changes,
Yeah.
and it takes a little bit of effort to stay connected.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Right. And knowing that what you're getting out of the relationship can change, and what you're getting out of, so with this recent trip I took to Hawaii, I went with my brother and sister-in-law because my sister-in-law is from there. So went with them to visit her family. And my brother and sister-in-law are lovely humans. They're wonderful. And her parents are lovely humans, wonderful people. And there's a different value system, right? There's a different, what my brother has prioritized for his life and what he's spending his time and his energy doing is very different from mine. And, it doesn't make either of us right or wrong. It's not better or worse. It's just simply, where they've been putting their energy and focusing on the, buying a house and getting married and having children and working a job that's a job. It's whatever. It's, because it's the means to this other end that is different from my value system, where I'm dedicating myself to this purpose, to this, this vocation. And yes, also having these other things as priorities, but not necessarily doing it in the same way. And being okay with that and really loving my choices. That was an opportunity that I had over the last week, was to remember, you know what, I love my life. And I feel really happy that I am choosing, that I'm making the choices that I have in my life. There's nothing missing from my life. And yeah, it doesn't look the same as my brother, as these people that I love and that I respect and that I have a great deal of connection to and affection for. And yeah, they might not understand it. And yeah, they might say things to me at times that indicate a profound lack of resonance with my life choices. But that's okay, because I understand it's coming from a place of loving me and of wanting me to have, it's their version of wanting to make sure that I'm okay and that my life is good. But it doesn't look like their life, but it's just like this, hey, what about this thing that's important to them? And what about this thing that's important to them?
Well, and that's the thing, is that everyone has a value system, and the values are many things. And we've been taught to value certain things in our society. And when we are on the spiritual path, our value system really changes a lot from a 40-hour week, maybe working in an office, and, the 401k and all of the like very same normal kind of structure that we've been taught to live into. And our values might just be changing to peace, love, freedom. I want to feel freedom. Like, I don't want to have that kind of a job, or I like, my values are different. So you just have to understand that everyone is living according to their own values, and that as long as you are living in alignment with your values and being an expression of your values, that you will find what you're looking for. And that's what's most important.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, before we wrap, Kat, is there anything else that you can think of that you want people to have or to know before we close? I think we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah,
right?
that's a lot. Also, if you are going through challenges, I would say that we did an energetic, what was it called before? It was before the holidays. We did like an energetic survival for empaths.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we did that a while ago.
Yeah, it might have been last year. We've done a couple of episodes right before Christmas time. So go back to anything in December's, and you'll find some really good tools about maintaining your boundaries and maintaining your energy and taking care of yourself when you're sort of immersed in a family experience that maybe doesn't feel so nurturing.
Yeah. Energetic survival. There's a protection and boundaries episode. There's one on energy vampires and toxic people, right? Which, even if people that you're relating to aren't inherently toxic, there's still some good tools in there that will
There's one on the ancestors, so that might resonate as you're sort of understanding yourself at a deeper level from where your family is coming from. There's lots of different resources for this, but just to know that it's a normal part of the process for you to have a lot of emotions and feelings, and things come up, and considerations and maybe conflicts inside of your family of origin, especially if they're seeing you make a big change and that feels frightening to them. They feel like you've maybe destabilized in some sort of way because you're making big changes. And sometimes you just have to step back, and you have to be like, hey, I actually don't need your advice right now. I'm really doing this on my own, and I love you, and to take some space. And sometimes that's what you really need, is to create enough space for yourself to really find out who you are. And that's also a valid way of engaging with this kind of work. And then, come back and work on forgiveness and love and compassion and kindness and all of those things when you feel really stabilized.
Yeah. And also, just if it feels appropriate, letting them know I'm safe, I'm okay. Like, all of this is fine. And if you're working with someone, you can, and again, it feels appropriate, let them know, hey, I'm working with a mentor, or I'm working with someone who's helping me work this out. I'm all good. And you might not understand it, but I am assuring you that I'm okay. And that can go a long way too, because really, at the core in these relationships, really the people that love us and the people that we love, like, they just want to know that we're okay. And even if they don't understand it, even if they have no context for it, just doing what you can to kind of set that mind at ease will often go a long way.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wait, can I just say, I think it's really important to also understand and realize that as you are on this path, you are going to uncover wounds and trauma and things that happened to you when you were a child, and you're going to have realizations about the actual reality of your family system, the ways that it is way more dysfunctional than you ever thought, because you're so just in the mix of it. And as you unwind yourself and do your own self-healing work, you're going to realize, like, oh no, this is way more toxic, or way more, like, you might realize that you have been in an abusive experience or an abusive relationship. You might be in an abusive relationship and you didn't even realize it until just, last week. And so those things can come up, and it's really important that If you need to take space, and also to receive some support, to work with mentors and healers and therapists and those people, if stuff is coming up and you're having realizations about the way that you engage with relationship based on your family of origin, and or the way that you are responding to energy or trauma and so on. There's a lot of unwinding there. And so this can bring up a lot of stuff. And so it can make maintaining those relationships for a little while a little bit more challenging sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, super important. Absolutely. And one last piece on this, a lot of what we've been talking about has been primarily in the context of people that you want to keep in your life. There are probably either you've already experienced this, or you might experience this, or you're asking yourself these questions of, do I still want to have a relationship with this person? Right. And, maybe this family member does want to be engaged in your life, and is trying to stay there, but for whatever reason it doesn't feel like a healthy choice. So please know that that's an option too. You have every right to create the boundaries in the space that will be most supportive for you. And we didn't talk about that a lot in this episode. We talked more about people kind of drifting out of your life of their accord, like if they're choosing to leave, but you also have the right to create that space. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
thanks for watching or listening or whatever it is that you've been doing. We really appreciate your attention and your support. And if you would like to support us, you can check us out on Patreon, Shaman Sister Sessions on Patreon. And also our sessions are up on YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, everywhere else. Go ahead and subscribe and like and comment. Let us know if this landed for you. Maybe if you have anything that you've been struggling with or any questions that you are having, please feel free to comment on any of our videos or to send us a message. You can always reach out to us at shamansistersessions@gmail.com or through social media. And you're amazing. You're doing everything perfectly. And we'll see you next time.
Mm-hmm.